Dad gave his business to my BIL at his retirement party instead of me because I was a disappointment. 2 years back, my dad retired from his position as CEO of the lab equipment business that he had established. He had promised me, for almost 7 years, that I, 30M, would be the next CEO, but on the day of his retirement party, he announced that my brother-in-law was going to be the next CEO. It came as a huge shock to me because I was the one who had organized that party and I had absolutely no idea that this was going to happen. I clapped along with everyone else at the party when he made that announcement, but later on, when I confronted him, he told me that he had his reasons for letting me down. Apparently, my brother-in-law Zach, 34M, was more of a son to him than me since I was just a disappointment. Let me just tell you guys that Zach had only been involved in the business for about a year at the time, whereas I had given 7 years of my life to the company. We had known Zach for a long time, since he and my sister, 33F, had been together for almost 5 years and had been married for 2 back when my dad retired. I had worked with him and he was a good guy, from whatever I had gathered, but I still couldn't come to terms with the fact that my dad thought this guy was more of a son to him than his biological son. When I asked him to elaborate how exactly I had disappointed him, he said the most asinine thing that I could imagine, and it was then that I lost all respect that I had for my father. He told me that it was a very difficult decision for him to make, but eventually, he would have to do what was good for the company. And somebody as mentally weak as I would never be able to be a good leader, which is why he had passed me over to choose Zach to take his place, since my dad believed that Zach had more qualities like my father than I did. By calling me mentally weak, he was referring to the fact that I had been diagnosed with a general anxiety disorder, and I had made the mistake of telling my family about it a couple of months before my dad retired. While I was having dinner with my parents one night, I accidentally dropped a small container of anti-anxiety pills that had been prescribed, and then, I had to explain it all to my parents. My mother was quite fine with it, but my father is not exactly a huge believer of the importance of mental health. He thinks that being tough is the solution for everything, and after I told him that I had anxiety, he started having less faith in me. I feel like I should mention that my anxiety had never affected my quality of work, and I had never allowed it to get to a stage where it would make me less capable of being able to lead a company. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people in upper management positions probably do deal with anxiety. It can't just be me, and I'm sure that they are able to deal with their anxiety without letting it get in the way of their work. But my dad told me that I had disappointed him by making excuses for my weakness and even resorting to pills for all of this nonsense. And so, after a lot of deliberation, he had decided that Zach would be the perfect candidate to take over the company instead of me. He told me that if I wanted to leave, I was free to do so, but because he couldn't trust me to lead the company like he had, since I had already shown him that I was not strong enough, he was not willing to hand over the reins to me. It was not only what he had said, it was also the fact that he had led me to believe that I would be the next CEO, even though he had made up his mind about it well before the retirement party. It was really hurtful, and that night, I left the party early and never spoke to my dad again because he had really hurt me. At the end of the day, it was his company, so he could choose whoever he thought was the best choice, and if he thought that my anxiety was going to get in the way, then I had to respect his choice. But I didn't have to stick around and tolerate this kind of disrespect, so I resigned, and within a couple of weeks, I started working elsewhere. The only person from the family that I have kept in touch with was my mother after my sister found out that I was resigning because I was pissed that my father had made Zach the CEO instead of me. She chose to take that as a personal attack instead of trying to understand where I was coming from. She called me later on to come to my dad's defense, and we got into a fight, after which we stopped talking. For the past 2 years, I have not spoken to my father or my sister, and obviously, I have had no contact with Zach. Occasionally, I do speak to my mother and check up on how she's doing. We try to meet at least once a month, and every time we meet, she tries to tell me to make things right with my father, but I'm just not interested. And about a week ago, my mother called me and she was quite frantic. She told me that apparently Zach had been caught up in some fraudulent activities, tax fraud essentially, and had been arrested, and now, even my dad was under investigation because of his previous association with the company. I thought that was very upsetting, but I didn't know what exactly she expected me to do about it. So she told me that she wanted me to speak to my father, sort things out with him, and testify for him in court, if it came down to it, since I had worked with the company earlier. But I was very clear with my mother, and I told her that I was not going to get involved at all in any capacity. I was pretty sure that if my dad was getting investigated, all the other higher-ups involved with the company were going to get investigated at some point. If Zach had committed fraud, then it was quite a serious charge, and I don't want to get into the details of it, but all I know is that the farther I stay from this mess, the better off I am. So I told my mother very clearly that I was not going to stick out my neck for my father, and they were going to have to deal with this on their own because I don't want any trouble. Besides, if my dad even really wanted my help, he should have spoken to me himself. He's the one who needs me, why should I be the one to contact him first? My mother then started telling me that I was being childish and that instead of still being petty, I needed to talk to my father and clear the air with him because this was not going to be easy for the family, and right now, we needed to stick together. I thought that my mother was being unreasonable, and I told her that my decision was final. I was not going to be reaching out to my father at any cost. So she then got mad at me and said that I was selfish and heartless because even when the family was going through so much, all I cared about was what had happened 2 years ago. And I think that was a really insensitive thing to say to me, because if she had been in my position, she would have felt exactly how betrayed I had, and she also wouldn't have been able to move on from that so quickly. She would not have been able to forgive my father if she had been in my position, getting passed over for a position that you had worked so hard for almost 7 years for something that was completely out of your control. It's ridiculous to expect me to forgive him, especially when my father has never even pretended to be apologetic for what he had done to me. I don't think anybody can forgive a person who is not even sorry in the first place, so my mother and I just kept arguing for a while. Eventually, I just told her that this is probably karma for screwing me over, and whatever is happening with Zach and my father right now, they completely deserve it. Then, my mother went silent, and after a while, she hung up. I felt bad for saying it, so I was going to call her back a couple of hours later, but then, I realized that she had blocked me. And now, I feel super guilty about what I said. So Ida for saying that my dad was probably facing his karma because he had passed me over to be the CEO? Update 1. Hey, everybody, it has been 1 week since my mother blocked me and I haven't been able to get to her so far. I'm trying not to feel bad about it, but honestly, there's not much that I can do. She was the only person who was still in touch with me for the past 2 years, and without her, I feel really lost and alone. Obviously, I do have my friends to fall back on, and they are all here for me, but she was the only person from my family who was looking out for me, and now, I don't even have her. It's quite difficult coming to terms with this, and I really want to reach out to her, but I'm still going to maintain that I have not done anything wrong. I don't think that I said anything out of line, because I really do think that this might be karma for kicking me out of the company over something that I had absolutely no control over. Yes, I do have an anxiety disorder, but like I said, it's not crippling. It does not affect my leadership qualities, it does not affect my ability to work as well as everyone else, and it certainly did not make me a disappointment like my father said. Whether people like it or not, words carry meaning, and what he had said to me on the night of his retirement party has stuck with me for the past 2 years. His primitive attitude towards mental health and its importance seriously messed up my self-esteem for a good couple of months, and I kept doubting myself, rethinking every decision that I had made so far, and I felt like an imposter even in my new workplace. It took me a lot of time to get over that, and even now, I'm currently in therapy because there are a lot of unresolved issues that I'm dealing with. However, it has never once affected my ability to work, and I'm one of the best employees at my workplace, something my bosses keep reminding me of since they plan on promoting me pretty soon. So I really do think that my dad messed up big time, and if my mother can't see that, it's not my fault. It just sucks that she's choosing to take my dad's side on this instead of telling him to suck it up and apologize to me. I can't understand why she thinks that I should be the one to make amends first, but one thing is for sure, I'm not doing jack for the family until they tell me that they are sorry for everything. And they have to say it like they mean it. I'm not going to be used again for their personal gain. Update 2. My sister came by to visit me today, and it was very tense because she was hysterical. She just wanted me to help her out since her husband was in huge trouble, but honestly, I don't even know what they expect me to help them out with. My hands are tied here. This is a federal crime, and I don't think I can do anything to help them out. She looked like she was in a terrible state, which is why I had invited her in, and I tried to be kind to her to the best of my abilities because I'm not heartless. I can't just slam the door when somebody is suffering so much. Anyway, she just kept crying on my shoulder and kept telling me that she had no idea that any of this was happening, and if she had, she would have put an end to it immediately. She told me that she's really worried about what's going to happen with him, and she wants me to use my connections to bail him out, but I told her that unfortunately, I don't have any such connections that would prove to be useful here. But she then told me that our father had said that in the company I'm working in currently, one of my bosses is married to a federal judge, and he was hoping that maybe I could speak to my boss and do something for them. She even suggested that they would be ready to pay whatever amount it took, but they just wanted me to put them in touch with my boss and by extension, his wife. I thought that was pretty out of order, even for her to ask, let alone expect me to do that. I instantly said no, and I told her that I would appreciate it if she left me alone because I thought she had come by because she wanted my emotional support, but this was something that I was not going to encourage or even entertain. And I was saying no for multiple reasons, the main one being I did not want to bring this up with my bosses and have them associate me with a family of frauds. More importantly, I had my personal code of morals and ethics as well, and I did not wish anything bad for my sister, but if Zach had actually committed tax fraud, then I didn't want to be caught up in a scenario where I was trying to help him out and influence the situation in his favor. At this point, it was not even anything personal against him, it was just that I did not want to get involved, and the most that I could do for them was be there emotionally, but apart from that, it was crazy to expect me to go to such lengths. When I said no, and asked her to leave, my sister started sulking and said that she couldn't believe that I was still holding a grudge against her husband for something that was not even his fault. I tried to explain to her that this was not about that, and as a matter of fact, I had never really blamed him for what had happened with my father. It was my father's decision to give him the position instead of me and allow him to take over the company, and if I was in his place, I probably would have accepted that position as well without thinking about who actually deserved it. So yeah, maybe I resented him a little bit, but I didn't hold it against him, and I definitely did not hold a grudge against him. He was just simply not important enough for that, and I tried to say that to my sister, but she just refused to even hear me out and said that our mother had been right. It was pointless to try and talk to me because I was still extremely petty and selfish. So we ended up fighting once again, and I told her to leave my house because she couldn't just waltz in and insult me after everything that happened, especially after I had tried to comfort her, though she had never extended that same courtesy to me when I was going through a tough time, and in fact, she had actually fought with me back then because she took it as a personal attack. 2 years later, she was still doing the same thing, so if anybody was being petty and selfish, it was my family. And that comment that she had made, about our mother being right about me, made me feel really bad because throughout the past 2 years, she had been the only one who was there for me, and now it felt like she had never actually been there for me at all, and it was all for show. I was already very hurt and my sister refused to leave. She just kept standing there and said one hurtful thing after the other, so it eventually came to a point where both of us started screaming so loudly at each other that I couldn't even make out what she was saying. We ended up cursing at each other, but then, she finally left and I feel terrible about everything that's going on, but at the same time, I feel like they deserve every bad thing that's happening to them. I honestly feel like even keeping in touch with my mother for the past 2 years had been a huge mistake, and I should have just cut my entire family off when I had the chance. Even now, I regret trying to be there for my sister because she was acting hysterical. They are definitely not worthy of my time or energy anymore, and they keep proving it to me again and again, but for some reason, I just keep finding it incredibly difficult to cut them out of my life entirely. I keep thinking about our childhood, how close we used to be, and my heart hurts to even talk about it now. All of this just genuinely sucks. I just wish for it all to be over soon. Update 3. Hey, so it's been 4 days since my sister visited and we got into that fight, and after that, nobody spoke to me for the next 4 days. I almost started thinking that they were going to leave me alone now, but today, my parents finally showed up in this time. I had made up my mind that I was not going to let them in. I had already made the mistake of letting my sister in last time, and then we all know how that ended, so I was not going to repeat my mistake. They were standing outside the door and I told them to leave because I really didn't think that I had anything to discuss with them, and they couldn't possibly have anything new to say to me that they hadn't already said, so we could just not waste each other's time and let this be. But my dad said that he was not here to ask me for any sort of help, but he was actually here to apologize to me because, after a really long time, he had realized that he had done the wrong thing. He told me that he had screwed up in the worst possible way, and he knew that nothing that he said at this point was ever going to make it better, but the least he could do was at least try to talk to me and let me know that he was really sorry for all of this. And I have got to tell you guys, that really took me by shock because I really was expecting him to show up and start yelling at me or something. We haven't spoken to each other after the night of his retirement party, and I still remember that he had called me a disappointment. I don't think I'll ever forget. That was all that I was thinking about while he was apologizing and he was done talking. I told him that I was really thankful that he had come all the way here to apologize to me, but it isn't that easy for me to forgive him. He can't just apologize and expect everything to be fine just like that, especially when we haven't even interacted with each other in the past 2 years and he has never made an effort to talk to me either. So I told him that I needed my time, and even then, I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to bring myself to forgive him. It wasn't even the fact that he had screwed me over 2 years back that was bothering me even now, but the fact that it took him 2 years and so much trouble to realize that he had not done the right thing and to finally come and talk to me, that's what made me feel really sad. Even after that, I was just waiting for him to get mad at me and start yelling, but he just said that he was ready to wait for me to come around, and even if I decided never to speak to him again and did not forgive him, he would be fine with that as well. He said that 2 years back, he had made a very stupid decision, and it was not that he hadn't taken my mental health seriously, it was that he had taken it a little too far. He explained to me that his father and all the men in his family had always been really rough and tumble, and he had been raised the same way. He had been raised to believe that what we had to do to get through life was just to fight, and everybody who claimed they had anxiety or depression or whatever, they were just weak and they were making excuses for themselves and their weakness. And so, when he found out that I was taking anti-anxiety pills, he started thinking that maybe I was not up to the task of leading the company, and he had built this business from scratch, so he couldn't afford to let that go to waste. It was his fear and paranoia that got to him, and he made the worst decision that he could have possibly made, which has led him to this situation. He then told me that after we stopped speaking, he was really mad at me and resented me for a couple of months, but then he started second-guessing himself and started reading more and more about anxiety and how it functions. And a couple of months ago, he started feeling like he might have some symptoms himself as well, and he was planning on reaching out to me to try and make things right, but then this fiasco with Zach came into light and he was not able to do that. After he told me all of this, I felt really weird about the situation, and I still don't know how to feel about any of this, but at the very least, he has apologized to me. I know that after 2 years, it's not much, but to me, it means a lot. I don't know if I will be forgiving him anytime soon, and I really don't know if this apology was real or not, but I'm willing to at least think about it and give it a chance. For now, I just told him to go back home and I would contact him if I felt like it. And he respected that and went back after that. As for my mom, we didn't really get the opportunity to speak much today. She did apologize to me in the beginning for her behavior as well, along with my father. Towards the end of my conversation with my father, She told me that she was ready to wait for me to forgive her. She said that she might have reacted a little too quickly and a little too harshly instead of trying to understand what I was going through. She also said that she had spoken to my sister and she also wanted to apologize to me on her behalf because she also thinks that she has treated me really badly in the past, but I don't think I will be counting that as a real apology. My sister is an adult, she's a grown-up and she can speak to herself if she wants to. If she wants to apologize, she's going to have to come to do it herself, and I can understand that she's just trying to deal with everything to do with Zach right now, but that's still not an excuse to behave with me the way that she did the last time that she visited. Anyway, the point is that most of my family members have apologized to me and now it's up to me whether I want to accept the apology or not. I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be a very difficult decision to make. I have spent 2 whole years of my life without any contact with any of these people, from my mother, of course. And even with her, things are pretty dicey right now. On one hand, I really want to forgive all of them and move on with my life because I don't think resentment is going to take me ahead. If I don't forgive them, these things are just going to keep running in my mind endlessly like it has been for the past couple of years and I really don't want that. On the other hand, I don't know if forgiving them and letting all of this stay in the past is the right thing to do. I'm just really confused about what to do right now if I'm being honest. I miss my family terribly and all of this is messing with my head. I know a lot of you might be thinking that they are only doing this because they are in trouble right now, but I've already made it very clear that I cannot help them and even if I could, I wouldn't. It's a matter of principles for me and I'm not going to change that for anyone, no matter what. So if that's what they are hoping is going to happen, they have already set themselves up for failure. And in case that's not on their minds, and they are genuinely trying to apologize to me and repair our broken relationships, then that just complicates things even more. I guess I'm just going to have to sleep on it for a couple of days and then I'll think about what I want to do. I'll keep you guys updated. Update 4. Hey, everyone. I was able to log in here after almost 4 months since I got really busy in the middle. Why that happened, I'll come to that later. Anyway, the last time that I posted an update, my parents and my sister had just apologized to me. My parents had apologized to me in person, but my sister, I guess she was too caught up with the situation with Zach and that's why she had told our mother to apologize to me on her behalf. She visited me a couple of weeks after that and apologized to me in person as well. And I told her the same thing that I had told my parents, that I would think about it and let her know what I wanted to do about this. And I did think about it, I took my own sweet time, and last month, I told them that I would like to rebuild my relationship with them, but it had to be at my own pace. I told them that I would be willing to have dinner with them once a month from now onwards and see where it goes because I'm still not sure if rebuilding a relationship with them is a good idea or not, but they were thrilled and said that they were okay with it as long as I was happy. So that's where it's at right now and we had dinner together a couple of weeks ago this month. It was sufficiently awkward, but I could see that they were really trying to make up for the past by being extra nice to me. Zach was not present at this dinner since my sister filed for a divorce from him 2 months ago and he had already been fired from the company. My dad offered to make me the CEO but I declined. I think I need some more time. So my dad is handling things at the company right now and he is still waiting for an answer from me. I'm gonna think about it for a couple of more months and then, I don't know, I might accept. For now, I'm just trying to make time for the things that I love. And that includes my girlfriend. She is a really old friend of mine who I started dating a couple of months ago and that's what has kept me so busy for so long because now, there is more to my life than just work and family drama. In fact, she is the one who convinced me to forgive my family and give them a second chance. I'm really happy that we are together because so far, I have never asked her out even though I have liked her for a really long time, because I didn't want to get rejected and then end up ruining our friendship. But I'm glad that she took the first step. Now, we are together and I'm as happy as can be. So things are going pretty well for me right now.